What?
You're all bundled up to be inside.
Cool.
Yeah, I hope Amy knows about those grant services. Considering she got millions of dollars to support it. Okay. So I'm gonna present on stuff, it's gonna be sort of like what stuff I wish I would have known when I was in your shoes, and some like really crucial things about the state process. Every process is gonna be different, you know, because there's QRC, workers' comp, all these different things. But if you're getting a grant for the state, I cannot stress how awesome it turned out to be. I was so worried about it and nervous about it, and the professionalism, I didn't know what to expect, all the rules and regulations and everything, and it turned out, so far the roller coaster has been a really awesome ride. And so, I'll just kind of, I've never done this, so first we will flow. So the process of VRS, so when you're a counselor, the way you get referrals is there's a counselor and then you have a tech. They're like your assistant. And it's really weird because a lot of us counselors are younger. A lot of counselors are retiring, so there's been tons of job openings all over the state. And the techs have been working there for 30-some years. So for me, it was weird having like an assistant when I felt so young and new. You know, you're not used to telling somebody who's been doing something for so many years, like, will you do this for me? She can't really say no. Like, and so that's kind of a cool thing having a job, and it's somebody that's always there to help you. Your left hand, if you ever need anything, they know the policy, they know procedures, they know what's approved, what's not approved, how much can be approved. They're just so awesome to be there when you start. And that's not there with QRCs or workers' comp and stuff like that. You don't have a VR tech. You don't have the state paying another person just to help do parts of your job. And so that's cool. So you get a referral. Referrals can come from social workers, anywhere. A person can just call in and make an appointment with you. They don't have to have anything. Somebody could just be in the waiting room, and if they want to talk to a counselor, they can just walk in. And so when you have the initial meeting, the first 3 things that you do is you have them sign a Tennyson warning, which is like the state's thing of a HIPAA. So I know all of us have like really diverse backgrounds. Some of you have been doing this for years, and some of you have never been in a professional setting. And so a tennis, you have to go through and explain it for accessibility. Many of our consumers can't read and write, and so you have to go through and say, this is what it's saying. And I brought examples of all this. I'll set this on the table. This is like our new client in packet. So you guys want to look at the stuff in there? So you're basically asking them tons of personal questions, and the reason why you're asking those personal questions is to see if they would be a good fit for both rehab services, if they're eligible. And then the bottom is saying that you're a mandated reporter, and that you will report, and that you can't share any information without their consent or their guardian's consent. A lot of them have guardians, so that's another crazy thing. If you've never worked with somebody who thinks that they are in control of their life, but they're not, that's like a really fun aspect to try to, when they come up with goals, they're completely unrealistic than what their guardian wants them to be doing. And so, and with 87 people on my caseload, time is so precious. So it's kind of frustrating when you take the time and meet with somebody for an hour and then come to find out it doesn't like their say isn't. Anyways, so after you get them to sign a Tennyson, then they sign that pink sheet in there. That's our official application for our services. They have to fill that out. And then usually I was taught where it says what is your disability and how does that affect you. A lot of people struggle right there. They get kind of anxiety and they don't know what to write. They don't know, because you're just meeting them for the first time. They don't know anything about you or if you're judging them or anything. And so I just say, you don't have to fill that part out because we're going to talk about it right now. It's kind of like a GRE. You know, like we'll see we'll just talk about it. And then you have them sign releases maybe if you need, so if you need to get their medical information. If you can, as a counselor with a master's degree, it's your job to be able to tell, are they going to be eligible for our services? Right after that intake meeting, and if you think they'll be a good fit, they will go onto the waiting list. Then you'll have them sign releases to their therapist or their psychologist or their doctor, and then you send off for their medical records, because nobody can be in our services without medical records. We need proof of their disability, because we have a waiting list right now. We only serve people with severe disabilities. So like somebody, which is also frustrating. Am I going too fast? Are you guys catching me? You're with me? Like I had a young man come in last week. He just had autism. He finished a 2-year program at a tech college for a car mechanic, and he just needs a little bit of help through that interview process of that social awkwardness with autism. And we can't serve him because it's not a severe thing. So that has been the most frustrating thing. But as new counselors, we can advocate for policy, we can advocate for more, if there's more counselors, then more people can be seen, stuff like that.
So could you give me an example of what would be severe?
They have to have, severe is, we have an eligibility form that we go through when we get their medical records, and they have to be in 3 of the areas on the form. And I'll go through that when I do the assessment of needs. I'll talk about that. So then you can get their medical records in that day, the end of the day, or it can take up to 60 days. And it's so frustrating because people come into you and they're like, I really need a job, I can't pay my bills, I don't have food to eat, I just graduated, all these things, and you want to be able to help them right away. And I learned the hard way, we're not a crisis. And I feel like almost everybody comes in with crisis. They're losing their kids, or something's going on that's immediate, and if you could just help them get a job this week, then life would be so easy for them. Everything would be great. And that's just not practical. And so they'll call you, depending on what kind of disability they have, they will call you 3 times a day. They'll call you every day. They will get your email address, and they will email you, have you got their records? Am I eligible? When can I come in? When's our next meeting? What do you need from me? And I'm like, I can handle a lot. Like people going fast and like demanding because I'm that way. And so I'm like, just wait. It's out of my control. It's a process. And then getting them to understand that it's a process. So then you get these medical records back, and then part of having a master's degree is being able to read these medical records and interpret them, and you go through and you highlight the things that would vocationally impact them. You have to pull out, if they have, if they're a student, and on their IEP plan, because you can get IEPs, if they can't focus, why can't they focus? How's that going to affect them on the job? What kind of supports are they going to need on the job to help them focus? Are we going to have to make sure the manager at Shields can make them a list of things to do? Will they remember to go back and check things off the list, or will they redo things? And you guys, you're going to have a master's degree, and there's so much weight in this profession held on it because you're expected to be able to process and interpret serious life barriers and know how that's going to affect the person on the job by meeting them 2 times. And I mean, it would be nice if you could meet somebody over 60 days, meet them 4 or 5 times and get to know them before, but everybody wants a job, and you just want to help them, so you place them. So you find them eligible, you set them up with a placement person, and then they go job hunting, and then it's kind of trial and error, what works and what doesn't work. But then I think counselor style goes into it too. What kind of counselor are you? Are you going to be the one who's going to take the time and make them wait and make them learn that it's the process? Or are you just going to see if they can sink or swim? And I'm more about sinking and swimming because so far, 3 months into this, I found out that so many people are told things that they can't do. I don't think that you could work in the shoe department. I just don't think that you could do that. That probably isn't a good fit. I'm like, let's try it. What if? What supports do you need? How can we make it happen if that's what you want to do and you feel comfortable with? And so it's all about finding, and I wrote more on that in there later. Okay, so then after they get the eligibility services, then, and this is like behind the scenes that they don't see that you do, this is probably the most important thing of being a voc rehab counselor, is completing the assessment of needs document. And new state policy says that you cannot refer them to any referral source until this assessment of needs is done and sent with your invitation for a placement. And that placement person needs to read this document that you've made to better learn the person before they meet them. So that when you're inviting this placement person who's going to help them applications, resumes, interviews, job hunt, apply for online jobs on their behalf, placement people are like the go-getters. They kind of make things happen. You're the support. You're the cement of the whole foundation. You're the funding process. A lot of people say that we're a paycheck, and that is a big part of the job. People come to you and just want you to buy things for them, which we can do, which is fine. But another responsibility of having a master's degree is responsibly being a steward of tax money. The state of Minnesota found you eligible and hired you because you can justify what should be spent and what should be saved. And so that's a big thing in the assessment of needs. You're saying what services do you think would be appropriate for the person and what you're willing to provide, what you're willing to spend money on so that they can be successful. And so I brought, and our assessment of needs, so have you guys seen a diagnostic assessment from a mental health provider? Raise your hand if you've seen them. Okay, so a lot of you guys haven't. This is ours. So therapists, when they do counseling, when they meet somebody, they go through and they make a diagnostic assessments. They talk about their barriers, what's the persistent mental illness, how's that affecting their life, their transportation, their financial situations, their family, their supports, and they tear apart their whole life and write this document. That's what an assessment of needs is by a counselor, except we take all of that information and then we have to process it and make judgment of how that's gonna affect them on the job. So I almost think we do double the work that a therapist, and I went to school, and I'm like, I'll get my LPC, I'll be a therapist, I'll do my own thing. This is way more prestigious, and the integrity and people calling you and saying, what do you think would, it's kind of humbling that people come to you and think that, you tear apart their assessment and that they work so hard and put so much time in too. Okay, so then you get the assessment of needs done. That puppy's over with. And then you meet with the person and then you have them sign more releases and those releases in there, so you have them sign a release for vendors. Vendors means like Walmart or bus tokens or, it's vendors is seen as a place where we're gonna purchase things for that person. So if they're gonna volunteer somewhere and they need rain boots, they're giving us permission to go to JCPenney's or Walmart and buy rain boots with them. And then other releases, post-secondary, if they're gonna go to college, you need releases to talk to the college about everything that they might need, disability services. You need releases to talk to everybody and anybody. Even if you work in a workforce center, I just found out, even though you're in the same building and you meet in team meetings and go through these cases together, you need a release to talk to you. If they're an MFIP person and they're a single mom getting services from MFIP, you need a release to talk to that person, letting them know that you're helping support their disability and them getting a job too. Releases. You can get in big trouble if you don't sign a release and you make one slip up. And then this thing is a CFP, Consumer Financial Paper. I don't know. CFP is what we call it. And it's that is a piece of paper that needs to get done at this meeting, and it says how much money they make. Do they have a spouse? Do they live with their parents? Do they live on their own? If they're getting Social Security, SSDI, SSI, RSDI, if they're getting any of that, they're automatically eligible for our services, and we can get the ball rolling faster, and we can just get medical later, because if Social Security sees that they have a severe disability, obviously we're going to support that too. But, and if they do get disability, or if they get medical assistance, or food stamps, or MFIP, that makes them all automatically eligible for free services by us. But let's say you have somebody, she owns her own business, and she makes a lot of money, but she just needs support in some other area. I can't think of one. Low vision has been an instance. She's needed glasses, these really expensive glasses, but she makes so much money that she'd be responsible for paying a percentage of those glasses. Or she needs help interview, whatever. Some people make so much money, or their parents make so much money, that they might have to cover part of their tuition, or they might have to pay part of their books because of that. So then, a huge confusing thing, I didn't realize what authorizations were before I got into the job. Do you guys know what authorizations mean? Yeah? Well, I didn't know that. Authorization is basically a thing saying, like, this is what the state is willing to spend, and this is what I'm gonna say it's okay to spend on a certain, it's like a money amount that's how businesses pay billing and stuff. And so, like when you request medical information from the hospitals, those are always $35, if not more. And so you have to send an authorization before you even send for medical records, and tell you guys it's such a process. Saying that, I'll pay the $35, send me the medical records, this person needs our help.
Is that authorization to encumber funds?
Mm-hmm.
Is that,
mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, I remember when I was in school, I never heard the words needs assessment of needs. Not of all of our speakers that came in, I never heard this word ever, and I think it's the most important part of my job. And so I kind of want to spend a lot of time with you guys on what this assessment of needs is, because there's so much, it's so professional, and it's the policy for the state weighs heavy on this, and there's certain ways that it should be done. There's things that can't be missing from it, because if your cases get pulled and they get reviewed and it's not written correctly, you're going to get dinged. And after so many dings, you can get fired, or you just want to look competent. And so you guys can read that. Wow, I wrote that. I did not copy and paste that from anyone. Just kidding. So when you do your assessment of needs, you're assessing and you're evaluating their medical information, your initial intake meeting, and how, you know, when could they fill out that pink application form, that you can assess their ability to read and to write just based on that alone. You know, are they gonna need, when you do more paperwork, are you gonna have to read everything for them and help and write everything for them? Are you gonna need to hire another like, independent living person? Because it helps, and they can help do everything else. And so you go through all these things, and then you draft your report. Okay. So I know when I was you, I was like, VRS, Loegering services. What services? What does that even mean? These are all the services that we pay for, or that the state provides, because the state is paying me, and I do counseling and guidance. I do the assessment, and people. Another thing I think is really big, if you guys can research and write down, because this is important, is DB 101. Go to the disability benefits website, DB 101, and kind of get familiar with it, because I just went to a huge training on it, and a lot of professional social workers, therapists, school educators, there's this thing in there called My Vault, and Department of Human Services launched this, and it's a place where if you have consumers or family members or yourself, you go on there and you register for it, and if they're getting any county services or Social Security, all their important documentations pop up in there, and that way it kind of could it could speed up the process. And if people want to know, well, how much, you know, if they're getting subsidized housing, how much are they getting from SSI, or what general assistance are they getting, and they can upload anything else too. So let's say if they have child custody issues, they can up that into My Vault. It's like a secure area protected by Department of Human Services, and they want it to be utilized more by counselors and for us to spread the word. So that's under DB 101, and there's tutorials and YouTube videos, and then we also make lots of referrals to DB 101 because we're not experts with working with Social Security. Like, we know a minimum, but if you guys can get more familiar with knowing SSI, SSDI, you know, how much can they make, because it was really intimidating in my first meeting that this person's like, well, I know I can make $9.50, but I don't know if I can work 11 hours or 23 hours. What does that mean to me? And I kind of was like, I was never trained in disability benefits. I don't know. I mean, we had a few of our people, students ahead of us explain it, but there's so many rules. And Ticket to Work, look up what Ticket to Work is, because that's important, because a lot of people, when they apply for our services, they'll get a letter in the mail from Social Security saying, here's your ticket to work, and they're like, oh my gosh, are my benefits gonna stop? I don't wanna do your services anymore, and that's not what it means at all. And so look up what Ticket to Work is and try to become familiar with that. That's something I wish somebody would have told me. Somebody did probably tell me. So customized employment services, this is a new huge thing that the state is going through right now too, is that we're putting a big push on with people, because we only serve severe disabilities, that we want to customize things. We don't want people to think that just because they come to our office, they're going to work in a hotel or doing dishes or being a custodian, because that's the stigma that people with disabilities have, is they can only get these low income or these low uneducated jobs. But we want to say, you know, if a perfect example is with the WIOA in Olmsted. So every student under 25, if they have the functioning of a 3-year-old, and they repeat themselves, and they have autism, and you know, they're really low functioning, and they would have just gone to DT&H, you know, shelter workshops, and that would have been, you know, they piecework, so they don't make minimum wage, they make less than that. The state is saying we want the people that we have to work harder to assess them and to make a customized job for them. And a lot of people their counselors are half and half. Either a lot of them are like, okay, this is going to take more time and a lot more effort and a lot more money, and some are like, how is this even possible? It's so overwhelming, because these cases are going to be really frustrating on finding a niche with employers, bridging the gap with employers and getting them to be patient and giving them more time when they could just pay somebody right now to know the job, get it done right now, versus, you know, almost like encouraging more compassion while they're spending money on this person, you know. So a good example is we just got a job last week at a car dealership for this young individual. He loves cars, he's got autism, but he rocks all the time, he says really random things a lot, and one of the job duties was there, the placement said, one of the guys, they have to go out when the cars are frozen, the doors are shut in the winter, they have to be unlocked, the keys need to be unlocked every time and opened and closed, and then the keys have to be, you know, hung up nice, and then a certain piece of paper needs to get put somewhere. And instead of having the guy who makes $80,000 a year stepping away from those other responsibilities that he's capable of doing,
we made a job for this autistic boy and he could not be